to the Shaman and the Pastor. I'm the pastor. My name is Kent Philpott, and here is the Shaman.
And my name is Narrye Caldwell. Happy to be here.
All right, Narrye, thank you very much. She spells it N-A-R-R-Y-E. Well, here we go. This is our very first program, and the subject is we're going to talk about shamanism from your point of view, your part of it. I'm going to talk about Christianity, my part of it, and we're just going to acquaint people with who we are and where we're at. Okay, let me get started. Christianity. It's a big subject. We can't talk about all of it. I'll just talk about my engagement with it, what part I'm with. I didn't grow up as anything. My dad went to a church. My mother went to a different church. They didn't see eye to eye on that stuff at all. And so I remember when my dad took me down to the train station in Los Angeles to go to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas for basic training, he gave me a New Testament, a little New Testament. As soon as I got on the train, I threw that away. It went into a trash can. I was nothing. I had no real beliefs. I liked Edgar Casey, Whitey Murphy. I was into sort of weird stuff, UFOs. I was fascinated by all of that. But to make it kind of quick, I was doing a bachelor's degree in psychology. I was at University of California at Davis, and I was taking a philosophy of religion class. Dr. Child, one of the renowned professors at that era, and we had to write a paper on one of the world religions. Well, I said, I'll write it on Christianity because I know all about that. Well, I didn't. I tried reading the first chapter of Genesis and got so irritated with it, I threw the Bible against the wall. And I ended up having to plagiarize encyclopedias for my paper. So what I started doing, there was some guys at the hospital. I was a medic. And there was some surgery techs, Vern Hogue and Don Etheridge. And they went to this Baptist church in Fairfield, First Baptist Church of Fairfield. It turned out to be quite fundamentalistic. And I started going. 9 months later, in a way I don't know how to say it, I became a Christian. You've heard us, we're the born-againers, we're the born-againers. You know the Narrye, born-againer type. A lot of people don't think much of us, but it's just an expression of what happened. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I became a Christian. I didn't know Baptists from anything. When I was in high school, I was a member of the American Zionist Association. Most of my friends were Jewish. I used to get called Kike and Hebe by other kids at the Verdugo Hills High School in Los Angeles. And I did not identify with anything really. But here I was now, and all of a sudden, I was interested in the Bible, Christianity. I could only go to church one Sunday out of 3 because of my work at the 2nd Casualty Staging Flight. We moved all the wounded around from the Pacific Theater all over the U.S. And so that was pretty much it. It turns out the kind of Christianity that I identify with is what you'd call evangelical. I know that's a bad word these days. I am not political. I am not political. People don't know how I vote. Politics to me, it's just entertaining. That's it. But anyway, instead of being a school psychologist, I went and got a master's in psych. I was going to be a school psychologist. All of a sudden, I woke up, I wanted to go to seminary. So I've been a pastor some 50 years in Marin County. So I would be a Protestant, Baptist, evangelical, whatever. I used to be a flaming Pentecostal for a long time too. And I'm not against it at all. So anyway, that's pretty much my theology. I have what's called a reformed theology, Narrye. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Well, let me start with my disclaimers, which are that though I teach for the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, which is a nonprofit shamanic research and teaching organization that was founded by Dr. Michael Harner. It's here in Mill Valley in California. Dr. Harner passed away a couple of years ago, but he spent his life researching shamanic practices and shamanic cultures all over the world. And he developed an authentic shamanism for Westerners who have lost Western Europeans. And he called this type of shamanism that he developed core shamanism, which distinguishes it from various types of cultural shamanism that you'll find all over the world. And I'll give you a little description of what core shamanism is. That said, I just want to make clear that I don't speak officially for anybody, for the foundation, or for, of course, not for indigenous shamanic people all over the world who have their own shamanic practices. So though I'm well trained in core shamanism and I teach it, really I'm speaking from my own personal experience. And that's what I want to share, which is perfect for shamanism because it's an independent spirituality. The other thing I want to say that's going to make our conversation, I hope, very interesting is that shamanism is not a religion. And meaning it does not come with a set of beliefs that one accepts on faith. It's not a faith-based system of beliefs. Mm-hmm. It's a practice and a methodology. It's a methodology that teaches people how to, on their own, connect with spirits in an alternate reality. And mm-hmm. that's a really juicy thing to talk about between us probably. So maybe we can get back to that. But through this methodology, a person can have their own experiences of the spirit realms and make direct connections with compassionate, highly evolved spirits and learn directly from them. When I learned about this, it was actually fairly late in my life. I grew up as a Quaker. And so one of the things that Quakers did, which made them caused a great deal of trouble in the 17th century for them, was they decided through experience that they could have, by going inside and being quiet and open, they could have a direct experience of Christ consciousness without clergy. And so they would have put you out of a job, Ken, but without clergy and without books and without being told what the message was. So this made them rather unpopular. However, for me, growing up in that culture, when I bumped into shamanism accidentally in my life in my early 50s, I sort of went, well, of course, it makes complete sense to me that I could have a direct connection with a spirit who could teach me directly, that you actually had what we might call a direct experience with spirit. I don't mean to project that onto you or to put words in your mouth, but
well, you're right. No, right. You're right, Narrye.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So maybe what I should do is say, if it's okay, and I have the time here, just to maybe give people a definition of what core shamanism is, and maybe 5 things about it that we at least all agree on. Most shamanic peoples all agree on, if that's okay at this point.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
The definition of core shamanism, as opposed to various forms of cultural shamanic practices, is that it is the universal, the near universal, and the common features of shamanism together with what we call journeying to other worlds. So what we tend to agree on in the shamanic world is a few important points. One is that humans are part of a unified matrix um, of in nature, which means that humans are not, we're just one of many beings in nature, and there's no hierarchy. Humans are not a higher order of being in the shamanic world. That alone caused a lot of trouble, both from religion and from secular beliefs that think humans are the top of the pecking order. So in shamanic culture, that's not true. We're just one of many, and we're related to all things. The other common feature of shamanism is that it is discovered through experimenting that there are two realities. There's ordinary reality, which is where we are sitting and having this conversation right now, and it's consensual. We pretty much can all agree about certain things about it. There's also a non-ordinary reality, and non-ordinary reality is non-consensual, and the only way you can experience it is by shifting your consciousness. And this is done in core shamanism through monotonous sonic driving. The most common way to accomplish this is by drumming at a certain tempo to shift your consciousness. And when you're able to do that, you can actually have an experience in non-ordinary reality.
Could I, Narrye,
jump in.
Is this what I would call the shamanistic state of consciousness?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I follow you.
Yeah. So in some cultures, and in fact, Dr. Harner, his first experience of this back in the 50s was in some of the Amazonian cultures where they used psychedelic plants to shift consciousness. And so his early research was like, wow, okay, that's how you do this. And it took him a while and a lot of research to discover that 90% of the shamanic cultures in the world do not use psychedelic plants. They use drumming or sonic driving. Yeah. So when he discovered that, he thought, oh, this is great because it's legal. That's a good thing. Yeah. So we, in core shamanism, we always use drumming or sometimes rattling and things like that. But that shift of consciousness enables one to then interact, to travel in these non-ordinary realities and interact with spirits. And that's the other thing that's a common feature of all shamanism, is that to the shaman, spirits are real. They're not psychological constructs. They're not symbolic, the symbols of things. They're not imaginary things that we make up. They're actually real. And
with that, Narrye, you'll find that Christians will agree with that, but we have a different take on it.
Tell me more.
Which we won't get to today.
No, not today. Okay, at some point, though, I want to hear. I want to hear about that. It's interesting because I have colleagues who work with. We all meet the spirits that are right for us when we do this kind of work. And I have never personally met Jesus Christ, though I have colleagues who have met Jesus in their journeys and consider him to be their primary teacher. So that's very interesting to me. It's very.
By the way, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But I have another take on it.
Okay. I definitely want to hear that. It's understood that everything in the created universe has a spirit, has a soul. And that changes for a shamanic practitioner, that changes how we walk in the world. There are certain things that if you understand that that rock, that tree, that raven, that mountain, that river, all of those things have spirit and soul. You have to treat them in a certain way. And if you don't if you think that only humans have souls, it changes how you walk in the world. So The only other thing I want to add, and then I'll kick this back to you, Ken, is I actually don't call myself a shaman, and that's mostly out of humility. I think that it's hard to know who's a shaman. I asked this question to Michael Harner one time, who was clearly a very great shaman, and he said, well, you really have to wait. You do the work, and you connect with spirits, and you, as much as possible, you bring the power of the spirits here to relieve pain and suffering. And in as much as you are effective at that and can help people, then other people in your community may begin to call you a shaman, but it's not something you call yourself. So most of us doing core shamanic work simply refer to ourselves as shamanic practitioners. Yeah.
I have here a printout of a rather lengthy article I wrote of shamanism. It's called Shamanism. I say the baseline, my first sentence is, shamanism, quote, is a methodology, not a religion, according to Michael Harner.
Yeah, good for you.
I literally quote him,
well
and it appears in this book called The Soul Journey. And I'm not trying to sell books, by the way.
I know, but I'm glad.
The subtitle is How Shamanism, Narrye, Wicca, and Charisma, that's a Christian term, are connected.
Oh,
and Katie and I duly authored that book. I say animism is the foundation of shamanism. Animism, that's the idea that everything has got a spirit in it.
Yes.
The mountain, the rock, the tree.
Yes.
One of my little things that I always argue against is the idea of a soul. Biblically speaking, the word in Hebrew is nephesh, in Greek is psyche. We get our word psychology from the Greek word for soul, but it was a word that got put into the Bible, but was a very poor translation. The soul for the Christian in biblical terms is a living creature. That human beings are created a living creature with a special spiritual quality that other forms of creation do not have. So, and I first heard that there's no such thing as the soul. We are soul.
Yes.
I thought those guys are liberal. They're not really separate parts. It's a way of talking about the capacity of the human being.
Yeah.
That it's not originally intended to be, we have these 5 different parts.
Yeah, interesting.
Which were, anyway, this is my view of it. And I'm at odds with a lot of Christians on this. And of course, when I'm in a place where I agree to disagree with everybody and anybody. I like to say, no 2 Christians believe alike. No 2 of us, none at all. So anyway,
very interesting.
So what you've said about shamanism is I read this paper just about an hour before we got in here, and you agree exactly. My paper agrees exactly with what you just said.
That's fascinating. So well, one of the things I found is that as shamanism has ballooned in popularity in the last
yes, it has.
decade. It's amazing. And that's a wonderful thing. And it also has created some confusion because a lot of people think that if you are an animist, believing in spirit, that everything in creation is inspirited in some way, that makes you a shaman.
No, it doesn't.
Not true.
No, I agree, Narrye. No, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, all shamans.
It's background, animistic background.
Exactly, and all shamans happen to be animistic as well, but not all animists are shamanic. The thing that distinguishes. Sorry, my dog is giving me trouble here. The thing that distinguishes a shaman or a shamanic practice is journeys, shifting consciousness and journeying into these other realms.
That's what the name of my book is, the Soul Journey.
The Soul Journey.
Yeah. And I got that from talking to a Zen master
Uh-huh.
a Zen master, one of the 5 leading Zen masters. We worked out at the gym for years together, and I went out to the Zen Center, and I said, "You go on soul journeys," and so that I'd learned from shamanism.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, I go on the soul journey," and he says, "I know how." He says, "Only the experienced Zen master knows how to avoid the evil spirits and only relate to the good spirits," he said.
Ah, that's something we should talk about. That's very interesting. I
Yes,
have,
it,
yeah, I haven't talked with you yet about maybe our next section, but
yeah,
about the types of spirits you encounter and in what worlds, because there's a topography to all this, and you have to know
yeah.
where you're going and
And you and
where
you
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 are.
and you're going to find, Narrye, that this is going to be an area where you and I are going to disagree.
Okay, good. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
One of the purposes of this program is to let people know what's what.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's what. I
Great.
did it with the Sunni Imam for 2 years. We did this
Yes. Wow.
2 years, and with the rabbi a year and a half,
Hmm.
a year and 3 quarters, and he had his views, I had mine, and they were like you though.
Uh-huh.
They didn't get mad,
Oh no, no. There's enough of
upset,
that.
or
There's enough of that going on in the world. I think it's just really important to have these conversations and try and understand one another, and the different ways of being a human being in the world. There are
yeah,
many ways of being, and I mean, I'm the first to tell you, shamanism is not for everybody.
no. When a conversation we had about a week ago, when we were just exploring the possibilities, you said that you had studied Taoism for like 20 years.
Yes, yes.
Now, was that over in the East?
No, that was through my education as a doctor of Chinese medicine,
Okay.
which is, basically you can't really study the medicine unless you also study the ground out of which it came,
Yeah.
which is largely Taoist and Confucianist. A
Yeah.
lot of that spiritual background to Chinese medicine has been eliminated. Um,
Okay.
but I forgot to tell you this. I have a long, long, long background in the martial arts, in traditional Chinese martial arts.
Oh, I hope you don't get mad at me.
No, well, if you want to see, there's all my weapons in the corner there, over there.
Oh,
So
your weapons in the corner. Oh my
weapons,
goodness.
a girl with an old lady with weapons. Um, but so all of that kind of, that was background for all my studies of Chinese medicine and martial arts is Taoist studies. Um,
Now, what's
and
the relationship, Narrye, with martial arts and the Taoism? What did you see that as a spiritual practice?
Ken, was it a spiritual practice for me? I think it helped me um, form a view. It was the first time I developed a kind of view of nature and the world, and a way to kind of relax into my being and allow life to unfold and trust that unfolding. Now, I suppose one could call that a spiritual background, but it didn't feel like, it felt more like a point of view. And I think I attribute that to the fact that one can study and be fairly deeply immersed in philosophical Taoism without getting involved in religious Taoism, which is
Okay.
full of rites and ceremonies and all of these things, which never attracted me, being a Quaker girl. It gave me a philosophy, but I wouldn't call that a spiritual practice so much.
Okay. Okay. I want to say something about Quakers. There was years ago, maybe 20 years, 25 years ago, there was a group of Quakers that were renting out the Boy Scout hall on East Blythedale in Mill Valley, and I attended some Quaker meetings.
Uh-huh.
And I saw where they got the idea of quaking. We would all sit there, in a circle,
Yeah.
and then somebody would literally start to quake and then speak.
Yeah.
And over the times that I did this, it turned out it was always the same 2 or 3 people. Every time, the same 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, I wasn't too impressed with the stuff that, that was voiced. Didn't seem very profound or even spiritual. It was just kind of funny. But anyway, so I'm familiar with that. But what I saw them do, and I would like to talk about maybe in this very next program, is the shamanistic state of consciousness, or the altered state of consciousness, because that's what, as I talked to them, they were doing in that Quaker meeting. They were trying to get their minds centered in a little bit of a different place, where they could receive messages. Now that's what they told me.
That's true, and having been a Quaker all my life, I can tell you that they often miss the boat. I love them, and I love Quakerism for the devotion to remaining open, to being a channel for divine, for spirit, and boy, they miss it a lot. And it's interesting because I think part of the issue is not really having a grounding in a methodology. I've been to probably thousands of Quaker meetings in my life in different places, and I see a lot of people falling asleep, and the other ones seem to be, quote, meditating. And meditation is beautiful. It's an incredible practice. Highly recommend it. But it's not what Quakers are supposed to be doing. If you're sitting in meeting, you need to be in a state like a cat watching a mouse hole. You have to be totally open to the possibility that spirit might speak to you, but you can't jump the gun.
Okay. Narrye, we got to stop.
That's fine.
Some of that, I'm afraid, might get cut out. I might have to rough cut that because we went pretty much past the time. So I'm going to end the program. All right. You've been watching.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You've been watching Philpott and Caldwell, Narrye and Kemp. We're talking about Christianity and shamanism. We're going to be back. This is just our first program. So be looking for more programs with the shaman and the pastor. So long.
I'm born again, I found a new way of life. I'm born again, I ain't never gonna die. I'm born again, my life's no longer a lie. I'm born again, thanks to Jesus Christ.